Hi, my name is Jose. I'm 27 years old. I was a Jehovah's Witness, and I am shunned.
All right, Jose. So, how'd you come to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses in the first place?
I was born into it, sort of. My aunt and uncle, like it all started with my grandma, um, and pretty much what ended up happening was my mom. She wasn't really much for Jehovah's Witness. She believed in it, but she really wasn't in it like that. She left to the United States. I was born in Puerto Rico,
Hmm.
and she left me there with my aunt and uncle, who were heavily invested in the Jehovah's Witness. Um, I was so young that when I was little, I don't have any memories of my mom before like the age of like 7. Um, my first memories were of the congregation, of my aunt and uncle, and of the island. So,
Wow. Okay. So, you said that it all started with your grandmother. Do you know how she came to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses in the first place and start this off in your family?
um, from what I know, I don't know like 100% the details, but
Sure.
from what I know, um, apparently she was brought up in a Catholic church. She was an orphan, and they didn't really treat her nice. Once she got out of there, once she got out of this, kind of just like kicked her out. She went on, did her own thing, and one day the Jehovah's Witness came knocking, and she answered.
That's interesting because, again, it's just a repetition of a pattern that you see a lot, and that is that people who are patient zero, so to speak, the person who brings this into the family, maybe they often have some sort of trauma in their lives. Your grandmother was an orphan. She was probably looking for identity or something and found it within the witnesses. And that's kind of common. People have been through wars, or there's been an abuse in the family, or a death, or maybe a birth, and they're looking for direction, but there's often times things in people's past that kind of lead them to that path.
Uh-huh.
Um, so what did it mean for you? So you were born into it. Obviously it sounds like with your aunt and uncle primarily raising you in it, at least from birth to 7, pretty much.
Yeah. So what it was is like I said, my mom, she like went to the United States. She took my older and my little brother with her. And for one reason or another, I was left behind with my aunt and uncle. And yeah, it, we were there, like we were at the congregation so much that some of my first memories are of the congregation. We would do studies. We would do the study on Mondays. Wednesdays, we'd go to the Kingdom Hall. Fridays, we'd go to the Kingdom Hall. Saturdays, we'd go out and, I don't know what it's called in English, but in Spanish, we call it predicando, where we, hand out the little pamphlets.
Oh, field service, or the
Field
field
service.
ministry. Yeah.
Okay. And then Sunday mornings, we go to the Kingdom Hall. So my life practically revolved around, it pretty much all around revolved around the Kingdom Hall, the Jehovah's Witness.
Okay. And so as a little kid with your whole life revolving around it, uh, I don't know, how did it make you see yourself or the world around you?
Oh, I felt like I was special. I was like, man, how lucky am I that I was born into the right religion and with the right people around me. Like, I am so lucky that I get to go to paradise. This is amazing. I was your model kid. I was like the kid that everybody was like, man, that kid's gonna go somewhere in this organization, like in this, in this Kingdom Hall or whatever, Jehovah's Witness. All the brothers and sisters, they all love me. I remember when one of the brothers, I think I was about like 4 or 5 years old, and they gave me my very first like suitcase, and man, I felt so official. Um, yeah, no, I felt really special. I felt like, they really cared. It wasn't until later that I figured out just how shallow and it all really was.
Okay, yeah, it does. It does feel good when you're in it at first, right? And people are super excited for you, especially as a kid. And if you're a go-getter, and they think that you're going to be the golden boy, so to speak, you're going to be a great
Yeah,
elder, or you're going to go to Bethel or Pioneer or whatever. There is a lot of excitement around that. Of course, it's an excitement around what you can do for the organization more than necessarily who you are as an individual, which
all right.
gets to
And
that.
I remember so many talks with like all the other brothers and elders about how like, oh man, it's gonna be so special when you finally get baptized. Like you're gonna feel like this is where you belong, and this is where you're gonna be for the rest of your life. Like trust me, trust me. Um, there's so much talk about all that stuff. Um, it really was a big part of my life, and at the time I felt like this is the place. This is where I was meant to be.
So you felt like this this was the place where you were meant to be. How did it make you feel about the place outside of Jehovah's organization? So the world at large, how did you see it?
That's the thing. I didn't really see it. I didn't really see it. When I was that little, my aunt and uncle tried their damnness to pretty much separate me from anybody who wasn't Jehovah's Witness. Um, all the kids in school, I was told like, every time I tried to make a friend, I would always remember this quote that my aunt told me one time. She was like, "They're not your real friends if they're not Jehovah's Witness." So that kind of discouraged me from trying to make friends outside of Jehovah's Witness. Um, Sometimes I would wander off and hang out with the kids in the neighborhood, and my aunt, she would be like, "I know they're not Jehovah's Witness. Come back over here." Um, I didn't really get to see much of the outside because they really, really tried to keep me constrained in this box, this little bubble.
Yeah, it's hard to have a worldview when you're not allowed to view the world.
Hmm. Yeah.
You're not allowed to experience anything or to have any knowledge of what's going on. So it sounds like you were rather isolated.
Yeah, for the most part, like I did try to reach out and make friends. But then as soon as I got back to my aunt, it would be like, nope, that's not gonna fly.
Hmm. So what did you see in those other kids that made you want to be friends with them? You just wanted to play, or you know,
Yeah, wanted to
yeah,
play. They would have the same interests as I did, with like animals and just like playing around with like toy cars, just little kid stuff,
sure.
completely innocent things that normal people wouldn't really bat an eye at.
So on one hand, you've got, hey, let's go play with toy cars, and on the other hand, you're being pulled back to, well, instead of playing with toy cars, let's talk about how the world's going to end. you
Oh,
know, quite a contrast.
so yeah, this ended up that ended up happening a lot of the times to the point where my aunt, she was just like, if they're not Jehovah's Witnesses, they're not your real friends. So I was like, okay, well, if I made them Jehovah's Witnesses, then they could be my friends. So I would try to talk to their parents, and they'd be like, hey, and I would be like, hey, my aunt would really like to talk to you about Jehovah and this and this and that. And I did that just so I can hang out with these kids. Like, that's literally like, like my aunt would be like, okay, now I got an excuse. Like, now if we can get them in there, like they can be friends and stuff. And, while they were doing their Bible study stuff, like I would get to hang out with the kids, play video games, watch movies, play with toys and stuff. And, there would be times where the parents would be like, I'm not really interested in that. Like, our kids can be friends, but we don't have to, we don't have to be Jehovah's Witnesses, or vice versa. You don't have to be whatever religion we are. And that's where all the communication would be cut off, and I wouldn't be allowed over to their house anymore.
So you see, shunning starts even there, right? You're if you're not going to be one of us, then we can't have anything to do with you. It can
Exactly.
start
Yeah.
even from that direction. It's really sad. It just picturing, I don't know, 6-year-old Jose in my head. I just wanting to play cars with some kids, and you being cut off from them just because their mom and dad won't study with Jehovah's Witnesses. That's just not. That's so unfair, and it's sad. It robs us of certain aspects of our childhood.
Yeah, I mean, and the crazy thing is, like, as kids, we don't talk about religion and God and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just concerned about playing and hanging out and having a friend. The last thing I'm concerned about, like, it wasn't until later when my aunt really drilled it into my head that, like, you do realize, like, if these people that you consider your friend, they aren't Jehovah's Witness, like, they're not gonna make it to paradise. And that scared me. That really scared me.
Sure.
Because, like, it gave me like this sort of like I have to save everybody kind of thing, as a naive little kid thinking that he can just like save everybody so everybody can make it to paradise. Just because I wanted friends, I wanted everybody to be happy.
Sure. It's a good intent. You just want to you wanted to have friends and for people to be happy, but the savior complex that comes along with it doesn't always dignify other people when you walk around telling them they're wrong, you're right, and that they
Yeah,
have to come see things like you do.
yeah.
It doesn't
No,
build great friendships.
it took a while for me to understand, like, like, hey, that's not really fair, and that's kind of belittling to to tell someone, like, hey, I need to save you, like, like, even though they don't really need any saving. I'm just all up in my head.
Sure.
um
So what was life like for you at home, with your aunt and uncle? What was, I don't know, did you all, was the environment happy and healthy, and were you all
yeah,
just enjoying your time together?
yeah, for the most part. They have a farm, so you know most days I would just be feeding or hanging out with the animals. And uh yeah, if we weren't doing anything that had to do with the animals, we were talking about Jehovah. And if we weren't talking about Jehovah, it would be like, there really wasn't much else.
That's true. That often does tend to dominate things. Did you all, uh, what was the temperature of the room? Were people just generally kind of in good moods? Did you all play games or do anything like
Yeah,
that together?
yeah, of course, yeah.
Go on
Yeah,
vacations and stuff, or
I mean, we we always had our family time together, like there's times where like it didn't have anything to do with Jehovah's Witness. It didn't have anything to do with work at home. There'd be times where it's like, hey, let's go out to the flea market, let's go out
Mhm.
to the boardwalk, let's go out to the city, and we would hang around, have a good time, grab some lunch or dinner. It wasn't bad. It wasn't an abusive household.
Mhm.
Um, it's mostly just some things that I, kind of had problems with um, that I felt like kind of it was unfair at the time, like hanging out with those other kids and wanting to make friends with people, but under the condition that they'd be Jehovah's Witness. I felt like that was a little unfair, but as a at home, it was fine. We
You
got
had a good
along.
time. That's
Yeah.
cool. Were you all, so who were you all in the congregation? I mean, obviously, it sounds already like you all were very involved.
Mhm.
Were you all so you all were the little, I guess, family unit that would go and be at all the meetings and be out
Mhm.
knocking on doors and
Yep.
raising your hand and commenting and giving talks and all the things?
Yep. That's pretty much who we were. Originally, my uncle was not part of it. Um, but after he got through his alcoholism,
Mm.
like he quit drinking, and he said it was all thanks to God. And ever since he quit drinking, he went to Kingdom Hall with us every single time.
So during all this time, did you have any contact with your mom?
Not until I was about 5.5 to 6. That's like my first memory.
Okay,
Like I don't really know it. When you're young, everything just kind of meshes together.
sure.
But around the time I was either 5 or 6, I remember getting a phone call, and I remember the person on the phone telling me that they're my mother. And I looked over at my aunt, and I was like, "No, my mom's right here." and and then there was this whole talk about like I'm not your mother, and I'm like, then why do I call you mom? And yeah, I ended up meeting my mother later on. Yeah.
Eh,
Um,
those are tough conversations to have, and I'm sure very confusing for a small child. But did your mom express or have any concern that you were being raised a witness and she wasn't super into it, or did she just think it was probably good for you to have some religion or something?
yeah, I mean, that was her sister, my aunt. Like, she trusted her to raise me with like morals and
Hmm.
you know uh, uh, stable upbringing. And for the most part, yeah, it was a stable upbringing, and I appreciate everything that my aunt did for me.
Cool.
She didn't have to do all that.
Yeah, she obviously took a lot on there.
Yeah.
Um, so then you mentioned school a little bit. So, did you have many friends growing up as a witness in the Kingdom Hall? You talked about maybe making friends, like I guess in the neighborhood or whatever, but did you have any friends at the hall?
uh there was a friend um who I was very close with, and I've tried reaching out to him, and this is how I found out I was shunned.
Hmm.
Um, so he was the kid who lived at the bottom of the mountain where I lived at, and I hung out with him all the time. During recess, he was the only kid I was really around. I was playing with him all the time, like playing marbles and stuff. Um, and well, there was a couple other girls, but they were the other parents didn't really like me hanging around the other girls, unless like the parents were around to watch. But yeah, the only like actual friend that I remember that was full in it, just like me, like straight Jehovah's Witness. Yeah, I tried contacting him a while back to see how he was doing. Just like, hey, how's life been? Like, it's been
Mhm.
crazy. Like, I haven't talked to you since we were like 12, you know? Um, and I would call. No, he wouldn't answer. I kept thinking, like, man, this must be the wrong number. And I was like, no, it's not the wrong number, because the voicemail, he says, his name, and I know his voice. Um, he's never blocked me from his phone number, but when there was one occurrence where like I would call, he wouldn't answer, and then I randomly got a phone call, and I was like, "Who's this? This is from Puerto Rico." Like, okay, I'll answer it. You know, so I answered it, and it was an elder, and he gave me his name, and I was like, "Hey, I'm just trying to reach out to my friend. It's been so long. I haven't heard from him, and I just want to make sure he's all right. See how his life is doing." Um, I sent him pictures of us together just in case, like, he forgot who I was. I was like, look, dude, like, here's a picture of us together. Here's another picture of us. Like, we were friends. Like, we were tight. Um, and the elder was just like, yeah, I'll let him know about all that. I'll let him know. And, I was just like, so you're going to call me back, right? And he was just like, yeah, I'll call you back. Couple minutes later, the elder calls back and he says, "Yeah, sorry, your friend doesn't remember you, and I think it's best if you just never call him again, okay?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he just hung up on me, and I never got any call back from that number.
Wow.
And my old friend never called me. Um, I reached out to my aunt, which she knows I'm out and stuff, and she doesn't really want to talk to me unless it's about Jehovah's Witness, like unless I'm coming back into the fold.
Mhm.
She doesn't really want to talk. Um, like even to this day, she sends me articles on like Watchtower and Awake on Facebook. Like that's the only time she ever wants to communicate with me. Is like she sends me old pictures of me when I was a little kid, and she's like, "Man, what happened to you? Don't you want to come back with to the grace of Jehovah? Like, come back to us, please." And I'm like, "Is this all you want to talk about? Like, don't you want to know how I've been in my life? Like, don't you want to see like, I got a daughter, I got a wife. Like, don't you want to know how we're doing?" Instead, you just all you want to talk about is Jehovah's Witness and Jehovah. And turns out she let the other brothers and sisters know, and word got through the grapevine that I wasn't with them anymore. And I was, that's when I realized, like, oh, they were told not to talk to me. And the only reason my aunt even talks to me is because she still thinks that I'm gonna come back Jehovah's Witness. And yeah.
It's really sad to see that a relationship is truly reduced to whether or not you're a member of the same club that they are. That it's not about who you are. It's not about, and we'll get in a minute to your, where it kind of ended up with your family and such. But like you said, you've got a wife and a kid. You're still Jose. You seem like a really sincere guy, just talking to you seem like a great guy. Like, why wouldn't somebody want to be friends with you, much less or even much more your aunt who raised you, or this best friend from when you were a kid? It's just really sad to see that in the end our relationships with all of those people is reduced to whether or not we are in the same religious club that they are. That's it. That's really what they care about. And it's really sad when it all gets boiled down and they show that side of themselves.
Yeah.
and what it really meant to them. Um,
Sorry if that was a little bit of windfall. I realized I just talked for like a long period right there.
no, man, don't worry about it. I wanted you to tell your story your way. So, um, when you do look, so you're looking back, you did have you felt really close to your aunt and uncle. You seemed to really have this life at the Kingdom Hall that it seems like was pretty fulfilling for you in certain ways. You really connected to.
Mm.
Did you go to school, like regular public school or whatever was available at the time, or were you homeschooled?
No, I was public schooled. Before I was public schooled, I was homeschooled. Um, I was supposed to go to pre-K, but all the spots were filled. So my aunt took it upon herself to, teach me, and that's how I learned English and Spanish, and at the same time. So, yeah, I was homeschooled for pre-K, and then she signed me up for public school.
So then, with that being the case, going to public school, you're now going to be around the people that you're eventually going to be told not to be friends with to some degree, right? But so did you enjoy going to school? Did you enjoy a different atmosphere and having different people around?
Oh yeah, I loved it. You know, one of my favorite things was art. When I was in kindergarten, first grade is when they really started teaching us like first grade. So kindergarten, I was like in a small group. We didn't really interact with other classes and stuff. But when I got to first grade, that's when like the whole entire school got out for like recess, and I got to interact with all these other kids from all these other classes. And yeah, I mean, it was fun. I liked it, especially when we did like art class, and they had this art teacher come in and show us. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. I can't. One of the reasons I'm really big into art is because my aunt, she was an artist, and she did a lot of paintings of birds, and I always wanted to do that. And when I went to school and I saw like, oh my god, I can do this too, this is amazing. And yeah, I mean, it was just a fun environment. I liked school at that time. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it was nice to have other kids to be friends with too, even if it was just
that,
at school, I guess.
that's the thing, I was only allowed to be friends with that one friend. If I ever interacted with any of the other kids, um it was just to play games. I didn't know their names. I didn't bother to get to know them. Like that's what I was told. Like, don't, if you want to play games with with your classmates, that's fine, but you can't be friends with them. And I interpreted that as, okay, so I can't get to know them. I can't this, that, or the third. Like I can literally just know them as my classmate, and that's it. And recess, that's cool, but knowing them any more than that is just too much, and I'm not allowed that.
I think it's fascinating that you said that you didn't even know their names.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't know any of them. there was one kid there's one kid in my class, um that I know his name. And the reason I know his name is because while we were doing our field service, I knocked on his door by accident one day, and I tried to get his mom to, become Jehovah's Witness, because I was like, oh my God, he's my classmate. Now we can really be friends if he's Jehovah's Witness. Um, I remember, I still remember him. Like, man, he was a cool kid. And then I was cut off contact from him when he gave me a Christmas present.
hmm.
Um, that's when all communication ended. He gave me a Christmas present,
How dare he?
And then they're just like, yeah, I don't think you guys are gonna work out with Jehovah's Witness if you're really gonna go ahead and celebrate Christmas and this and that. And yeah, I was just cut off all contact with him. But he was a cool guy. I wish I knew what happened to him. I still remember him fondly. Like, he was a cool guy.
Wow, I'm struck by the microcosm of witness existence that is kind of shown just in, I mean, like, I can't be friends with anybody. I mean, why even bother knowing their name? Unless, of course, you have a chance at potentially converting them, then suddenly they matter enough to have a name. Because that is at its core, even though most witnesses may not practice it exactly in that way, that is really what they believe. It's like recently, what was it, Stephen Lett referred to babies as little enemies of God in a talk.
I saw it. Yes.
And I understand why everybody is upset about that. It is horrible, but he just said it aloud and succinctly, whereas they've pretty much always kind of believed that. I mean, that's the whole concept of original sin. The second you're born, you already are in debt. You're already a sinner. And so it's just the way that the witnesses truly believe. It sounds like you guys really were. It may have been above and beyond what some people did, where maybe they knew other classmates in school or maybe had little friendships at times or whatever, because maybe their family allowed it. But at the end of the day, we all kind of believed what you're saying here, that really, if you're not going to come be one of us, why bother attaching to you at all? You're just going to be killed at Armageddon, and you might be a threat to our salvation and our faith. So why bother? And it's just really sad.
And at the time, I was like, I didn't see anything wrong with that. I was like, no, This makes sense. Like, this makes sense. Like, if they're not Jehovah's Witness, then they won't be my actual friend. I won't see them in paradise. So why even bother?
It's really dehumanizing, isn't it? You dehumanize everybody else. They're just somebody to play a game with or whatever, but they're not a human, even deserving of a name.
And oh man, when he gave me that Christmas present, my aunt got so mad because of what it was and the fact that it was a Christmas present. It was a Megazord from Power Rangers. And my aunt was like, no, that's violent. You don't need to know anything about that. And I'm like, but it's this cool robot. Like, that's all I knew. I was like, it's a cool looking robot. Like, what's so bad about it? And they guilted me into giving it back to him and saying, I'm sorry, I can't accept this if I want to go to paradise. I can't accept this if I want to be a Jehovah's Witness, because it's a Christmas present. And my friend was just like, well, just take it as a regular present. And I was like, no, because I know what it is. I know what it originally was. I can't accept it. And they guilted me into giving back this present, this innocent gift, and making it seem like it was more than what it was.
Yeah, that's pretty utterly heartbreaking. And I imagine that there's other people who will listen to this who can relate. I've had to give things back before. It's not fun. It's just awful. And when you really think about what you're doing to this other kid, it's like, good grief. We really made a lot about these, big deal out of a simple, sweet, kind gesture. We were the ones who turned it into something awful. But again, you're just a kid following what you're told to follow, and trying to save your own soul, so to speak, to save your life. And of course, not wanting to disappoint Jehovah, but it just runs so deep. Allow me to break in here for a second. This channel is made possible by you, the listener. If you appreciate what we're doing here, please consider supporting at patreon.com/shunned or leave a review on iTunes or other platforms. Like and subscribe. All those things help the channel. If you're looking for merch, you can go get some Shun swag from the shunnedpodcast.com website or reach out there to be on the show. If you're looking for more ex-Jehovah's Witness content, I'll recommend my first podcast called This JW Life. You can find that on podcast apps as well as YouTube. And if you're feeling stuck in life, struggling to find happiness and community, maybe you're haunted by the past, beating yourself up, unsure of who you are or what you even want out of life now that you've lost this one identity that was given to you by a cult, reach out through my other sites like exjwhelp.com, that's exjwhelp.com, or storyworkscoaching.com. And let's see about working together to help you find a life that fits you and who you are, maybe for the first time ever. And now, back to our guest. So, how did your childhood how did it play out as you went into your teen years? Is there anything that happened in there? I don't know, you got baptized at some point, or if anything, there were any seminal moments in there?
So when I finally came over here to the United States, my mom, she didn't go to Kingdom Hall. There was no structure, there was
So your
no
mom came and got you, or came
yeah.
back for you, or what's that look like?
So what happened was, my mom, she was trying to get out of the island. She was trying to get away from, just the situation she was in. I'll just leave it at that. And she was trying to find better opportunities. And so she went to the United States. And for one reason or another, I was left behind. But she went to the United States, and she was trying to make it. She was trying to, get a good paying job, get a place to live. And at that point, when I was around like 7 years old or so, she was like, "Hey, do you want to come out here? Like, we're good now. Like, I got a place. I got, like, I got a job. Like, we're good now. You can come over here. Like, we're stable." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. It'll be like an adventure, you know?" And so I came over here to the United States, and I realized, like, she had nothing to do with the Jehovah's Witness. She did not go to, the Kingdom Hall. She didn't really have any Bibles around the house. Like, she didn't have anything like that. And so I was so used to going to Kingdom Hall. I was like, "Ma, you have to find a Kingdom Hall. You have to. Like, I need to go over there. I need to see, like, And she was just like, "I don't even know if there's any." And I was like, "Ma, there's Jehovah's Witness everywhere. I'm sure there's some here." And so we ended up finding a Kingdom Hall, and she came with me. And all the people there were just like, "Wow, this little kid, like, he brought his mom to, Kingdom Hall. Like, wow, he's amazing." And they liked me. Like, all the people there liked me. And I don't know, it's just my mom. She the way her schedule is, like, she didn't have time to just keep taking me to the Kingdom Hall and all this stuff. Like, she was more worried about paying rent, putting food on the table. Like, she didn't have time. And so, like, I started, slowly, you know, uh, backing away from Jehovah's Witnesses and being like, "You know what? Like, I'm still a good person. Like, it doesn't matter if I go to Kingdom Hall. I'm still a good person. And if I'm a good person in the eyes of Jehovah, and he knows I can't make it to Kingdom Hall, he knows I can't do that. So, I'm still good in his eyes, right?" And so I kind of justified it in that way, to where, like, like, to be a Jehovah's Witness, I don't have to go to Kingdom Hall all the time. I just need to believe in him, I just need to believe that the word is true, and, Jesus and Jehovah. And slowly and slowly it started being you know, uh, uh, less about like, like, oh, let's go to Kingdom Hall, and more like, oh, like, I'm just gonna read, the Bible at home, or I'm gonna read a Watchtower at home. And then after that, it was like, like, I'm not really interested in that anymore. Like, I'd rather play video games with my brothers, because when I was in Puerto Rico, I didn't have contact with my brothers. I didn't even know I had an older little brother. I thought I was by myself. And once I started talking to my brothers and being like, wow, this is the friendship that I was like looking for this whole time. And like, I don't need to be a Jehovah's Witness to have this friendship, you know? And so like my brothers and I like, connected. We play video games. We would like, play with cars in the backyard, and it had nothing to do with Jehovah's Witness. It had absolutely nothing to do with religion, Jehovah's Witness. It had nothing to do with any of that. And it felt so good to have a friendship that wasn't tied to whether or not I was a Jehovah's Witness. And then from there, I just, Jehovah's Witness just started being less and less in my life. And then my aunt came to the United States and brought me back into the Kingdom Hall. But she didn't stay in the United States. She came over for like a couple months and was like, look, you have to go to Kingdom Hall if you want to be a good Jehovah's Witness. You can't be baptized. You can't know the real words that are spoken in the book by interpreting them yourself. Like, you have to have people telling you like what it all means and how it works. And I was like, okay, I guess. And then she left, and I was like, nah, what does she know? And I just went back to being like, you know what? If I'm a good person, Jehovah knows that, and that's all that needs to be. That's all that needs to be.
It's
I know
just
it's a roller coaster.
no, it's just I'm just struck by just the innocent sincerity of a kid who's just trying to be a kid, trying to play, trying to have just regular relationships. You now have these relationships with your brothers, and you're just like, how amazing is this? We can just play and have fun, and it doesn't have to be around Jehovah's Witnesses. We can just like, they just like me for me, and I like them for them. I mean, what a sweet, innocent, like just genuine, pure relationship where there's no ulterior motives and there's nothing behind the scenes. And it's just, you're just having fun together. That's how it should be. And instead, with witnesses, there's always an undercurrent of something else. There's always an ulterior motive. Nothing is just genuine for genuine's sake. There's always this other thing that's always underwriting everything, and that's Jehovah's Witnesses, the religion. It's always there to underwrite everything they do. And I just find it's just, your story is really striking in that innocence and that just sweet sincerity of, can we just play and be friends? Like, why do we have to do all this other stuff? Can we just be family? Why do we have to do all this other stuff?
Yeah.
It's just really striking. And I'm glad that you moved back with your mom and your brothers. And how old were you when you moved back? From when you came from Puerto Rico to the United States? How old were you?
I was about 7 or 8 years old. When I came over here to the States, I was in second grade.
Okay.
So.
Okay. And then, your aunt comes over and tries to get you to go back to the meetings, which is understandable. Again, she thinks she's doing what's right by you. Did you get baptized anywhere in there, or did you ever get baptized?
No, there's many talks of it. I even went to several, the big assembly.
the
Yeah.
district convention or
Oh
regional
man.
today?
I went to one of those, and there was so much talk about like the the other brothers and sisters. They're like, oh my God, look at that's how you know, like this is the right way to go. Like this is it. This is the right path. And I'm like, man, I want to do that someday. And it was like, well, you're gonna have to study. You're gonna have to keep going to Kingdom Hall. You're gonna have to grow stronger connection. You can't be otherworldly. And and I I felt like they were being, as a little kid, I'm like, they have no reason to lie to me. Like, they're being genuine. They really want me to go to paradise. I want to go to paradise. But at the same time, it's like, if God knows everything, doesn't he know that I'm trying my best? Like, I can't do every single thing he wants me to do. That's impossible. I'm trying my best, um why do I have to fill out these specific, like, why do I gotta, you know, get these check marks, in order, if he knows I'm trying, if he knows I'm genuine, why does any of all that, like, why does anything else matter?
Because you are sincere, and sincerity is not enough. Being one of Jehovah's Witnesses, it's a performance-based cult, and it's all about your performance and your what have you done for me lately, your actions. It is all about serving, and it's active, and you must do all these things. It's not enough just to be sincere. It's not enough, just even in their relationships, right? It's not enough to just sincerely love and care about somebody. You have to also be doing what they want you to do, or the relationship ceases to exist. Um, yeah, it's just you being you isn't enough. You have to be who they want you to be.
Yep. And
It's a shame.
it it was later on, because I would still go to Puerto Rico on during the summer, and I would always be brought back into the fold. It was like, take two steps, forward, one step back. I would make friends. I would, to learn about things that weren't Jehovah's Witness, that piqued my interest. And it would just be like, I'd go to Puerto Rico for the summer, and all of that stuff would be like, nope, 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 none of that stuff. Like, you gotta, nope. I,
What was that like for you to to be developing this other life that you're enjoying and that you're sincere about and that you're connecting to, and then to be brought back to one where you had been connected to it and were sincere about that too, but maybe it wasn't really fitting you so well anymore? What was it like going back to Puerto Rico and being sucked back into the Witnesses for a period of time?
it it felt, at first, I was like, this is good for me. Like, I need to be closer to Jehovah. I really want to get to paradise. I still believe in it. But the older I got, the more the years went by, and I kept going back to Puerto Rico, the more I saw just how shallow. I saw the hypocrisy. I saw, all the things, and I'm like, I can't be a part of this. Like, this is toxic. This is manipulation. And I didn't see it because I was too young and impressionable and naive, and I believed everything you had to say because, what? I'm a little kid, I'll believe anything. I'm like a sponge. I'll soak anything, just all the knowledge. I'll soak it all in and take it to heart. Um, and the older I got, the more I realized, like, wow, like, this is really messed up. Like, one of the instances that I saw was like really messed up was like, as a little kid, they used me to get people to open up their doors, you know? Like, they would, one of the tactics that they would do is, like, on Saturdays, they would, when we were doing field service, they would go around the corner. They would go like, all right, go knock on his door. I knock on the door. The guy would come out. I would want to talk about Jehovah. And then my aunt and uncle would come by going like, hey, you got away from us. Like, what are you doing over there? Oh, hey, is he talking to you about Jehovah? And then like they would take over the conversation. Meanwhile, I would sit in the back, you know?
Oh, that is so I knew I knew that as kids we were used to knock on doors and place magazines and such so our parents could come back later or whatever. But that's quite an elaborate ruse to have you go up while they wait around the corner and then they pretend like you got away to get in and have a conversation. Wow. That's a new level.
I mean, there was many instances like that. You know, there was instances like my friend, right? His family was going through something. That friend that I tried to call, and you know, that's how I found out I was shunned.
Yeah.
His family was going through some stuff, and his mom was excommunicated, like she was disfellowship, and but his father wasn't, and his father didn't live near us. Like he was living with his mom. So I wasn't like, even though he was Jehovah's Witness, I wasn't allowed to hang out with him anymore as long as he was at his mom's house. And the only time I was ever allowed to hang out with him afterwards was if he was with his father and we were in public. We would go out to the mall, we would go out to the boardwalk, we would go out to the zoo. But I would never get to hang out with him at his own house. And, you know, he would never come over to mine because his mom wouldn't let him, you know, go over alone. I mean, he's a little kid, you know? But yeah, the fact that like, I was like, man, this is really, really unfair. Not only am I not allowed to have friends outside of Jehovah's Witness, but this kid is a Jehovah's Witness and I've known him all my life. And I'm not allowed to hang out with him because his mom doesn't, you know, she's not with the Jehovah's Witnesses anymore. Like, that's not fair. He's Jehovah's Witness. That's all that should matter. Yeah, those just the older and older I got, the more unfair, the more I was like, no, I do not agree with any of this at all. Like I see through the veil, you know, I see through the curtains. Like this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I was genuine. I didn't sign up for these mind tricks, you know, this like, and whenever I brought it up, they would be like, no, you're thinking too much into it. No, that's not what it is at all. You know, and it's just
Don't
like,
think about it, Jose, because if you think about it, it doesn't look crazy.
Good. Like, you know, it's just like, don't tell me I'm crazy. Don't tell me I'm lying. Don't guilt me into thinking that I'm lying. Because, whenever I would say something that I was just like, I know this is what's going on, they'd be like, Jose, don't lie. Jehovah's Witnesses don't lie. Don't lie. You shouldn't do that. And I'm like, you're like, at the time I didn't realize like there was a word for it. And I'm like, you're gaslighting me. You know, like, that's what it was. At the time, you know, I was just a kid. I had never heard that word before. But now I'm like thinking back, I'm like, you guys are gaslighting me. Like, I know what I see. Like I'm very perceptive of my surroundings, you know. I know what's going on. I know why you do the things you do. And no, they would just be like, no, you're thinking too much into it. Just don't think about it.
Yeah. I mean, so you nailed it. It's gaslighting, and they're you see that the contrast in Jose's sincerity and their manipulation. The difference there, isn't there? You were very sincere and forthright and honest. And this is where, you know, it always gets to me. And I know why, you know, as Jehovah's Witnesses, we always talked about how honest we were, right? I mean, we were in the truth and we were just the most honest people in the world. No, we weren't. We lied all the time. We lied to ourselves about how we really felt about things. We manipulated situations. We gaslit people because that's what you do in order to control them. We lied constantly, and we were lied to constantly. And it is often the most sincere human beings from a base humanity perspective. It is often the most sincere people who end up finding their way out. Because you can't be sincere and genuine and stay in there. It will always eat at you. There will always be something that doesn't add up that you have a hard time letting go of. If you still have that base humanity intact and they haven't managed to destroy it all yet with the whole, the world around us, everyone around us is going to die. So turn off your base humanity. You still had enough of yours intact that you may not have known people's names at school, but you knew people and you cared about people, and that's why you couldn't stand for what they were doing. And that's a really interesting thing to be able to see.
Yeah, there's plenty other instances where, as the years went on, I just grew a strong disdain for the Jehovah's Witnesses, because I just kept unraveling that sweater, just unraveling, just like, wow, you guys just preached all that stuff. I ate it all up. And now I see what you guys really stand for. There's many times where, Jehovah's Witnesses, they go out and they help build houses and stuff, right? Well, the congregation that I was part of, they did that, but they only built the houses of other Jehovah's Witnesses. There was houses on the mountain that were like completely like falling apart. And there was families living there, and I wanted to help them, but they were like, we can't help them if they're not Jehovah's Witnesses. And I'm just like, do you not see how sick that is? Those people need help. And and you got the help and you're unwilling to help. Like, do you not see how bad that is? There's instances where like I would see like homeless people, like, on the corners, and I would want to help them, and they would be like, no, 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 don't help them, don't help them. And I'm like, why? This is what we're preaching. This is like, you're making me do mental gymnastics in order to like, not do what you've been preaching me to do since day one. Help people, give the shirt off my back if I have to. But then you're telling me like, no, 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 we can't do that unless they're Jehovah's Witnesses. Like, what the fuck? Like, sorry.
No, you're fine. Don't worry about it. That word has meaning, and it shows the level of depth, not only of feeling, but what they did. And it is hard to, on one hand, hold. We're supposed to love other people, and then to have to do mental gymnastics to not help people. That's insane. And so you see that really Jehovah's Witnesses don't care about other people. Jehovah's Witnesses care about Jehovah's Witnesses. I often say this in my coaching practice. I don't care where you align politically. In the United States, we had Donald Trump as president, and whether you're on the left or the right, even people on the right will admit that Donald Trump was rather narcissistic. We're going to build the best wall. We're going to hire the best people. Everything I do is the best, right? And Jehovah's Witnesses are the same. It's like, we have the best families. No one can clean a convention center like we can. We're the best at, religion. We're the best at everything we do. And in reality, when you really look at what they do, they're the best. Well, maybe they're not the best, but they're really good at gaslighting. They're really good at manipulating. they're really good at going out of their way not to help other people or not to know or connect to other people around them. The things that they're the best at are not good things. They're very unhealthy things, and they just end up destroying families and hurting individuals who are very sincere. And it is a crying shame. Just all the pain that they've caused and all the help that they've avoided giving. And I'm sorry that that happened and included you and it as well. You weren't even baptized.
Mm.
You are in the end. So I guess let me go ahead and ask you. So then how did your life just play out? I mean, have you just gradually kind of let go of this thing and moved on
I,
to
I've,
life?
I've tried. I've tried to let go of it, but and I would call myself an atheist. I don't believe in God, but I do believe in people, and I
Mhm.
believe in helping each other out and just being decent people to each other. Because I don't know what's there after, but I know what's here right now. I know you're real. I know I'm real, and that's all that should matter at the moment.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
the way I saw it, like that's the way I saw it. I felt like, what? If God is real, I don't need to worry about that. I just need to worry about being a good person. And if I can live with myself, and um, if I can live with the fact that I know I tried my best to be a good person, that's all I need. That's all the validation I need. And so I remember telling my aunt, like, I don't believe anymore. I'm done. I don't care. Like, I don't need to know if there's a God. And um, she cried. She tried every single thing. She would have brothers call me, telling me, like, please don't do this. Like, you don't see how bad you're hurting her. And I'm just like, look, I'm not gonna lie to myself just to make you people happy. Like, you guys always tell me don't lie. Well, you know what? I'm not lying. I really don't. I really don't believe. Like, and if there is, that that's not my place to whether it's just like it's not it's not my responsibility. Um, like, I just know I'm being a good person. I'm being decent. I want to stay I want to stay in contact with you, not because you're Jehovah's Witness, but because you're my family and I care about you. And she just cried and cried, and she would send me, like, she would try to start arguments about, like, look, this is you don't understand, like, you need to get to paradise. And I'm like, why can't this be paradise? Why can't we just be good to each other? Why can't we enjoy the time we have that we know we have? um and yeah, no, she just didn't want to hear it. She she was just like, well, you know what? If you're not gonna go to Kingdom Hall, if you don't believe in God, you're not welcome here anymore. And it was a long, long time before I went back to Puerto Rico, um, because she didn't want me there. She didn't want to, and the conditions were like, if I wanted to go back, I had to go to Kingdom Hall. And she's just like, just hoping that I would, like, break and be like, you know what, I need to go back to the Kingdom Hall. But it's like I stuck to my guns. And you know what? I was like, no, like, I see through it all, and it's not what I signed up for. I was genuine at first. I was sincere, but I see what you guys are really about, and I'm not about that. You might not see it, and I'm not going to tell you to leave because it's not my place to tell you to leave. That's your own decision. Um, but yeah, like, she stopped talking to me for a while. Um, I went through a bunch of hurdles in life. I started getting into drugs and drinking, and but I got all that out of my system. um I it took a long time. I went back to Puerto Rico, and I thought everything was good. I thought she understood. that, look, I respect you, please respect me, but the very first night that I spent the night at her house, she sat me down in some like interrogation type thing, some intervention. And she was just like, okay, pulled out her book and was like, why don't you believe anymore? And she was just like, oh, I'm like, oh man, I came over here on vacation. I'm on PTO right now, and you really want to have a conversation about Jehovah's Witness when like I'm a full grown adult. I haven't gone to Kingdom Hall in years. You haven't talked to me in years, and now you want to talk to me, but it's just so you can get me back in the hall, And I was just like, why do we have to talk about this? Can't we just be a family? And it's just like, no, you don't understand. Like, you need to get to paradise. And I'm just like, stop, please stop. And I had to I had to leave. I was like, you know what? I'm going on a walk later. Yeah. But it was during that visit that I got the phone number for my friend that I tried to reach out to. It was that time that I went out to Puerto Rico. I went asking around. I'm like, hey, does anybody know the phone number of this guy? And yeah, like they knew. They knew I was far gone, far gone, and yet all they wanted to do was try and get me back in the fold.
And that never stops. That's who they are. Hope springs eternal for them. They don't accept, the common thing that you hear that is said a lot of times is, it's the truth. No, I don't. You think it's the truth. I don't know it's the truth. I know it's not true at this point. And it's just a shame, because what you're exhibiting is love, Jose. Love is, hey, look, you want to believe this thing? Go believe it. She can go be a witness. That's fine. You're not trying to take her faith from her. But what she's exhibiting is control, not love. She needs you. She needs to control you and make you believe what she does. Even to this day, it's funny to me. If you go to iTunes and look at the reviews of like This JW Life, my podcast, my first podcast where I told my story, a lot of the negative, well, I'm sure there's a lot of 1-star reviews there from active Jehovah's Witnesses, but they don't really usually say anything. But the people who usually are upset with me are and leave some big long comment about how they're upset by This JW Life, it's always religious people who are upset because I'm not religious like them. And it's like, if that's all you took, you listened to 9 episodes of that, you heard me at my darkest hours, suicidal, all of this stuff. And the only thing you took from that is that I don't love Jesus anymore. Like, that's all you took from that? Really? And that's what your entire thing, you loved it up until you found out that I don't believe like you. And now somehow I'm a terrible, awful, no good person. Or you feel like I'm just eventually, the path is not over. Eventually you'll find God or whatever. Hey, look, I am open to that. I'm an atheist, but I am open to possibility. And I guess my question to them would be, are you open to the possibility that you're wrong? And I can love you regardless. Okay. Like, I wouldn't go follow your thing that's Christian and write a bunch of 1-star reviews on it because you believe differently than me. And so you see how people get really wrapped up in their own belief system. And, there are a lot of people who maybe even aren't Jehovah's Witnesses today, but they still think you have to think like me, or you're just a bad and wrong person. And we can all kind of go through that. But love is, I love you even though we're different. And you're saying that to your aunt. She can't say the same to you.
Man, I know what she did say back to me. I was when I told her, like, look, You believe what you believe. I'll believe what I believe. I'm not going to take your beliefs away. And immediately she got on the defensive, and she was like, "You can never take away my beliefs. Like, what do you think you could do to my beliefs? Like you can't shake me. Like I've been in this my whole life. Like you can't even try
So
to
you're
shake
not
my belief."
open.
And I'm like, I'm not even trying to. Like, I'm just telling you, I respect you enough to like leave your beliefs alone and not even challenge them.
Yeah, but she's projecting the fact that she's trying to change yours. She's accusing you of what she's trying to do to you.
Yeah, it's just it's mind blowing. Like
Part of the gaslighting.
yeah, yeah.
So, so I guess you were never officially one of Jehovah's Witnesses, but it just goes to show that you don't have to be baptized to be shunned, do you?
I mean, they from when I was little, like I was always told, like, like, hey, you're gonna be baptized someday. Like that was the end goal for a lot of people in my congregation. When they looked at me, they saw the model kid that was gonna someday be baptized and be somebody within the organization. And yeah, I was like, no, no, no. But I saw that. I saw like how everybody was propping me up as a little kid. They were just like, no, you did, we're laying out this path for you. Please follow it. Like you're gonna go places, only to later on find out that it was all just based on lies and manipulation.
Another word for propping you up might be grooming.
Yeah, yeah.
They were grooming you. That's not a super great term, but that's what they're doing, and it is manipulation to try to get you to follow a path. So then today, I guess, do you have any contact with any of the former witnesses in your life, or are they all gone?
My aunt reaches out to me every once in a while with
Preach at you?
Watchtower magazine articles, and um, that friend of mine that I tried to reach out to, he, pretty much like the elder told me, don't bother calling him again. Um, the other girls that I hung out with every once in a blue moon, I tried to talk to my aunt about them, be like, hey, I want to see how they're doing in their lives. And my aunt was just like, they're married, leave them alone, you know? And I'm just like, this has nothing to do with me trying to get with them. Like, I'm married too. Like, shit, I'm just, just trying to see how people are doing with their lives. Life is crazy, and it's nice to reminisce once in a while and see how you got to where you are. It has nothing to do, but she was like, no, leave them alone. Their husbands wouldn't appreciate that. They're married. Leave them alone.
Well, you see how they view women.
But yeah, no, I, other than my aunt reaching out to me every once in a blue moon with articles, there's no contact from anybody.
Hmm. So, I mean, it seems like you've tried to say something to your aunt. That's obviously not going anywhere. You were trying to reach out to your best friend. Is there anything that you would say to those that shun you today? Is it, maybe your best friend, or is there anything that you would say to them?
um, this paradise that we've been told to believe in for as long as we can remember. As much as I'd like to believe in it, it's not guaranteed. What's guaranteed is right now. What's guaranteed is the people around you and how you react to people and how you treat other people. Um, that's what's real. That paradise, that you know, it's hard for me to even think of like that being a reality somewhere out there, because I see my reality every day. I see the people I interact with. I see the things that I do, and how my actions, you know, affect other people. And it'd be nice if, if you guys could see how those actions, if you could see past yourself, past Jehovah's Witness, and see how your actions affect other people, in other ways, other than, whether or not, like, they believe, or, you know, I feel like, you can't take people's beliefs away, but it's like you can't make somebody believe something. Like, you can't make somebody lie to themselves. It's always going to eat at them. And, that's just how people are. And, I try to see things from both sides, but, um, I wish you guys would see past that. I wish you guys would show the empathy that you claim to have, you know? Um,
No, there's
because it really hurts knowing that I invested years of my life genuinely believing, only to be told, like, nah, you don't really matter anymore. Like, don't even bother calling us, you know? It hurts. I wish you know, show that empathy y'all claim to have.
I think that's a beautiful way of summing that up, and it is truly empathy that they lack. They don't think beyond themselves and their own feelings. They're not able to see both sides of something. They only see their side. That's it, and that's how they're programmed. I mean, I still remember I didn't learn that empathy was a real thing until my 30s. And I was like, wait, this exists? There are people, you're supposed to care about people's feelings? When did this start? Nobody ever cared about mine. I couldn't believe that that was a real thing. It's something that sounded amazing and that I always wanted, but I truly didn't believe it was real. And yeah, it was quite a shock,
Yep.
um, and quite freeing to actually learn that there are other sides. And wow, how much deeper your relationships are when you can experience them with empathy. Um, so so you were never officially in, but you're out. You've been out for some time, been away from them. Um, what do you enjoy about your life today? What's good for Jose in this world?
Well, I have a good paying job. I got a wife and a kid. Uh, I like to spend my time on things that I enjoy and I find fulfilling in life, um, such as painting and film photography, and, et cetera, et cetera. Um, this is just, my life is going great, and it's such a weird uh, contrast to what Jehovah's Witnesses told me my life would be if I'd ever leave. Um, I was always told, like, oh, you're gonna fall into drugs, you're gonna, you're gonna be homeless and this and that, and it's like, no, it's not like that at all. It's like they live, like, when I was in it, it didn't feel like it, but now I'm seeing it from the outside, and it's just like I see just how small of a bubble they really are in. Like, they really do not comprehend what's going on in the world. And if they do understand how the world really works, then they're just lying to themselves just to justify their beliefs. They're constantly lying to themselves.
And that flies in the face of who Jose is, because Jose is a super sincere guy, a super sincere man today who is a super sincere kid. And I think that has gone well for you, and I hope it continues to, because if you just live authentically and you're honest with yourself and you treat other people with empathy and kindness and the same for yourself, you can have a really wonderful life today that actually exists, and you don't have to worry about what happens in the future. And I'm really glad that you're able to find that for yourself.
Thanks.